Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Arman. Thank you, everyone participating in this event. And I would also like to thank Bettina for organizing this and the CHS for offering his auspices and for organizing, for making this possible. Today, I'll be offering my 5 minutes to what has been called the Kybdilon Sun, Pindar second dithyramb orality and choral performance. First of all, I would like to start with a question about what connects Oulipo with Pindar and ancient literary theory of the composition of a node, especially a dithyramb. I will attempt to answer the question about Oulipo and offer you some background knowledge that Oulipo is an abbreviation for Ouvroir de Littérature Potentielle, which may be translated as a workshop of potential literature as a group of French-speaking authors and mathematicians experimenting in constrained writing techniques. The group was founded in 1960 by Raymond Queneau and François de Lyonnais. Novelists like Georges Perec and Italo Calvino, poets like Oscar Pasteur and Jean Lescure and Jacques Rubot were included among its notable members. But what were these constraints? One technique was what was called lipogram, which is a writing that excludes one or more letters. Another technique was univocalism, a poem using only one vowel letter. The other technique was S plus 7, sometimes called noun N plus 7, which means that the replacement of every noun in a text with the 7th noun after it in a dictionary or in a lexicon. Another technique were the palindromes, like words or phrases or whole sentences, which may be read the same backward and forward. Like, for example, the famous phrase that we read when we go to Hagia Sophia, like nipson anomemata mi monan opsen. Now I would like to focus on the first 3 verses of Pindar's second dithyramb, which were cited by 3 ancient authors like Athenaeus, Heraclides Ponticus, and Clearchus from Sole. And I would like to kindly ask Lana, if possible, to allow me to share.
You can share.
Yes. Okay. So, sorry. So I would like us to read what has been what Athenaeus writes about the second dithyramb. And here I offer you the translation. Regarding the poem composed without the letter sigma, the same Clearchus of Sole said that Pindar wrote the following, a kind of riddle put in lyric poetry, since many had criticized him for not avoiding the use of the letter sigma, and they disapproved of it. In the past, one should take note of this in response to those who rejected the astigmatic ode of Lassus of Hermione entitled Centaurs. Also, the hymn to Demeter of Hermione, written by Lassus, contains no sigma. And then he offers the 3 first lines of Pindar's second dithyramb. I will read the Greek text. Prin men herpes hinotenia taidoa dithyrambon kai to sam kybdelon anthropos in apostomaton. In the past, the song of dithyrambs came forth, stretched like a measuring line, and the sun came falsely from the mouths of men, but new have been thrown open, etc., etc. I will just stop sharing my screen now. Now, these verses offer us one of the most important pieces of information regarding the formation of dithyramb as a literary genre through the phrase "to san kibdelon," which attracted ancient and modern classical scholars' attention. I won't go into details about how August Burke and Ludolf Diesen attempted to decipher the meaning of the term "san" in comparison to the term "sigma." At this point, I would like to remind us of W.B. Stanford's observation that the Greek attitude, and I quote, to literature was more like our attitude to music than our attitude to the printed page. According to Athenaeus, the peripatetic philosopher Aristophanius of Tarentum, who also had the nickname Musikos, suggested that some archaic anonymous composers of music rejected the sigma sound as it was difficult to pronounce or inappropriate for the musical instrument of aulos. Moving on to modern classical scholarship, Michalis Kopidakis, a former academic instructor of mine at my alma mater, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, in his 1991 article, The Kibdelon Son in the Gospel of Lucas, 22, 31 to 32, tried to pinpoint parallels between the use of S sound in the Gospel of Lucas and the books in the Old Testament, referring also to the views of modern poets, literary critics like Robert Graves, George Seferis, and Joseph van Hebel. The next stop to this fascinating trip à la recherche des perdus is the article by Armand Dangour, How the Dithyramb got its shape. Dangour attributes the ancient poets and literary critics' preoccupation towards the limitation or reduction of the impact of the sibilant sound to the trained and discriminating oral sensitivity, which was likely to follow from the essentially oral nature of Greek culture at this period. And I hope Milman Parry and Albert Lord, the Dioskuroi of Homeric orality, to note from where they are. Dangour interprets Lassos Hermioneus' purpose of asigmatic composition as an attempt to harness the uncoordinated enunciation of the S sound. Harnessing or manipulating sibilants was included in musicians' agenda like Sakadas and Auletes from Argos, who was 3 times successful at the Pythian festival since its instigation in 586 BCE. However, Dangour rightly insists that Lassos' preoccupation with how to manipulate sibilants probably arose from his concern to evoke Ophidian and thus Apollonian associations as a consequence of adequate and sophisticated choral direction. I will not discuss Salvatore Lavecchia's and James Portes' views on the same passage due to time restrictions. As a conclusion, I would like to prompt you to think how music and logos are entangled in the composition of ancient Greek poetry and music. Moreover, I would like us to think of a view suggested by Greg Nash in his monograph, Pindar's Homer, The Lyric Possession of an Epic Past, how much the staging of musical contests at the major pan-Hellenic festivals affected not only the poetic composition and production, but created and informed and increased awareness both from the part of the audience and the poet, which resulted to a highly sophisticated attention to the composition of instrumental and choral music. The staging of a musical event, like an Epinician song or a dithyramb, required the enhanced attention to music, pronunciation, and bodily movement. All these acoustic experiments, the choral and metrical innovations, and the linguistic manipulations brought together and grounded to the Greek folk music gradually evolved into the literary genres that Pindar had composed and resulted in what has been called the omnivorous literary genre, alias known as the Attic tragedy. And now I would like to introduce you Professor Angelo Meriani. Professor Angelo Meriani is Associate Professor of Greek Literature at the University of Salerno in Italy, where he also gives courses on ancient Greek music.
I have to unmute. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Bettina, for invitation. And